This is the M-151A1, quarter-ton utility truck, the latest model of the basic M-151, a rugged, compact vehicle designed to increase the Army's cross-country mobility. It is more than a simple utility truck, however. Special versions of the M-151 include the M-718, frontline ambulance, a carrier for special weapons such as the light machine gun, or the 106 millimeter recoilless rifle carrier, the M-151A1C. The M-151A1 can be equipped with a fording kit for beach landings and fording streams, or a communications vehicle, among others. A versatile vehicle, but regardless of how it is used, the general operation is similar within the family of the M-151. You can drive it safely under any conditions, or you can let the vehicle take over and make you an accident statistic. Most of these statistics prove that the vehicle does not cause the accident. The driver does. Tests conducted by the Army graphically prove this point. Here in slow motion is an M-151A1 being driven over a ramp at 15 miles per hour. Note the sharp steer to the left. This is at 15 miles an hour. Now watch the action repeated at 40 miles per hour with the wheels fixed straight ahead. This proper positioning of the steering wheel prevents the vehicle from turning over. As the driver, you must understand all the characteristics of your vehicle to operate it in the safest and most efficient manner. A careful, patient program of research, testing, and usage has proved the M-151 to be a superior tactical vehicle with vastly improved cross-country mobility. It is much more mobile and maneuverable than any of its predecessors. It is lighter, faster. The steering responds quicker. It is a much smoother ride with little body pitch and lean, thanks to the suspension system. And generally, it is much more stable than any of its predecessors. But this stability can be lost by abrupt turns and/or excessive speeds. When you drive faster than road conditions warrant, you're inviting the possibility of a sudden maneuver, which will surely strain the stability limits of your vehicle. Overall, the outstanding feature of the M-151A1 and its prime purpose is its cross-country mobility. Designed primarily for rough terrain, the M-151 has special characteristics. Instead of the solid axles used in most standard passenger cars, all four wheels are independently suspended. The rear suspension pivots from mounts near the center of the vehicle. This allows the angle of the wheels to change when they adjust to road conditions, resulting in improved cross-country mobility and a smoother ride. The independent rear suspension produces an oversteer condition. What does this mean to you? It means that in addition to the steering effect of the front wheels, you also get some additional steering from the rear wheels. You must be careful to avoid an abrupt steering action at high speeds. In a standard American passenger car, a turn in the road might require you to turn the steering wheel 6 inches. In an M-151, the same turn might require you to turn the steering wheel only 2 or 3 inches. So you see, there is a quicker steering response in the M-151. Even on a straight road, you must be careful to avoid oversteering. Most accidents occur on straight roads because of abrupt steering actions by you, the driver. Let's see what happens. If you're driving too fast on a straight road and make an abrupt turn, you may begin to skid. The rear end will swing. If it swings to the right, the left rear tire may leave the road and cause you to lose control of the vehicle. Steer right. And down. Remember, you must not oversteer. If the rear end swings left, steer left. And slow down. Again, don't oversteer. Oversteering is just as dangerous as the skid itself. This is important, so let's repeat it. If the rear end, steer right and decelerate. If the rear end skids left, steer left and decelerate. As in every skid, only tap your brake. Jamming hard on the brake will increase your skid and may result in your turning over. It is no trick for a standard American passenger car to make a fairly abrupt turn even at a good rate of speed. It is set relatively low, has a longer wheelbase and wide tread, and unlike the M-151, it is designed only for operation over improved roads. Further, the solid axle rear suspension means that the steering comes from the front wheels only. In a passenger car, two conditions occur which give you, the driver, a seat-of-the-pants feel of how the car is reacting to the turn. The first condition is an obvious tilt of the vehicle's body, and the second is the tendency of the front end to plow out of or away from the turn. These two conditions are warnings that you're traveling too fast. As the driver of the M-151, you do not have such early warnings that the vehicle is approaching its stability limit. You get a flat ride with very little tilt. If you wait for the feel of a passenger car, you could be in serious trouble because there is no such feel in the M-151. The rear wheels and rear end tend to break away from the turn. And the rear inner wheel tends to lift clear of the road. To correct this, decelerate and steer into the skid, away from the turn. This is important, so let's repeat it. Since some of the steering comes from the rear wheels, on a tight turn, the rear wheels and rear end tend to break away from the turn. And the rear inner wheel tends to lift off the ground. To correct this, decelerate and steer into the skid, away from the turn. Another thing, only tap your brake just as you would on snow or ice. Jamming hard on the brake will increase your skid and may result in your turning over. It's important to remember that the M-151 is a tactical vehicle designed primarily for cross-country travel. It is not intended for high speeds on the highway any more than the passenger car is intended for cross-country terrain. Vary with road conditions. The only way to prevent the possibility of oversteering and a skid is to slow the vehicle in accordance with these conditions and be ever alert to your speedometer. The speedometer should be your constant companion when driving the M-151, together with your judgment as a driver in handling the vehicle safely. Aside from the basic M-151, what changes have been incorporated into other members of this family? The M718 frontline ambulance evacuates casualties more rapidly and in greater comfort than its predecessor because of the suspension system. However, when loading patients, a single litter patient must be placed on the bottom rack. Otherwise, the vehicle would become somewhat top-heavy and tend to lower its stability limit. Special weapons like the 106 millimeter recoilless rifle are mounted above the highest fixed point on the vehicle. This means that it is more top-heavy than the M-151 and must be operated at a much slower speed than the M-151 under the same conditions. The addition of the 106-millimeter recoilless rifle and other special systems required the installation of auxiliary overload springs to accommodate the heavier loads. With the weapon removed, extreme caution must be exercised in driving the vehicle. It becomes obvious that this vehicle should be used only as a weapons carrier. Note that without the weapon, the vehicle has a different wheel angle. The M-416 is the only approved cargo trailer for the M-151. But remember, the trailer has no brakes. This means that when fully loaded, you have almost 1,400 pounds pushing behind you. Drive accordingly. The modern Army is always on the search for better and safer equipment. But in the end, it is you, the driver, who determines whether or not you will be an accident statistic. Tests conducted in the use of roll bars, seat belts, and shoulder harnesses reveal that safety cannot be guaranteed in a turnover situation. The answer is to avoid the possibility of such an occurrence. Here then are some driving tips. Learn them well. Know your vehicle. The safe driver of the M-151 is a man who shows good judgment, a healthy regard for sensible safety precautions, and confidence, but never overconfidence in his abilities. Don't oversteer. The steering is more responsive than in most vehicles and requires very little steering effort. You must remember that you're getting an additional steering effect from the rear wheels. So avoid sudden abrupt turns. And if you find yourself, despite every precaution, in a skid, steer into it and slow down. If you skid right, steer right. Skid left, steer left. Let the speedometer be your guide. Watch it. Because it is too, drive the M-151 A1C at slower speeds. It takes knowledge of your vehicle, common sense, and good driving habits by you, the driver. Then you will understand why the M-151 family are the finest, most dependable tactical vehicles in the modern, mobile army of today.
The Army's first 1/4-ton truck was born in 1941. Since then, hundreds of thousands of these utility trucks have served throughout the world. Let's meet the latest, refined, product-improved model, the M-151A2. Every one of you who drives the M-151A2 should be familiar with its capabilities and characteristics so that you can operate it safely. It's important to remember that this is a tactical truck, not a pleasure car. It wasn't built for high-speed highway travel. It was designed to serve as a reconnaissance utility truck over rough terrain. To carry out command and liaison missions across country where no paved roads exist. and to transport troops, light cargo, weapons, and ammunition up to forward areas. The quarter-ton truck is commonly used in conjunction with a companion vehicle, the M-151 trailer. In other configurations, it serves as an escort guard conveyance. As a frontline ambulance. And as a weapon carrier. The M-151A2 has a high road clearance with independent suspension for each wheel. And four-wheel drive. Because it is really a utility truck and not a passenger car, its handling characteristics on the highway are different from the family sedan. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But first, let's take a close look at this new model of the M-151 and examine the major changes. The easiest way to tell the A2 from previous models is by any one of these visible new safety features. The large composite lights, front and rear. The one-piece windshield. The deep dish energy-absorbing steering wheel. And the electric windshield wiper. It also has a mechanical fuel pump, windshield washers, plus a number of other improvements. But the single most significant change is not easily visible. It's the new trailing arm suspension underneath the rear of the truck. This modified rear suspension system improves the overall stability and handling characteristics of the utility truck. It replaces the swing arm suspension used in the M-151A1 model. Another improvement on the M-151A2 is that the steering linkage and ball joints located up front are lubricated for life. Even with the new trailing arm suspension, there is very little body lean when turning. Therefore, you get very little warning that the truck is approaching its stability limits. Let's contrast this with a conventional passenger car. Notice how the body leans as it rounds a curve. The driver gets a real indication of the vehicle's critical limitations. And when you get excessive lean, you know you're taking the turn too fast. For an exact comparison, let's see how these vehicles perform when going around the same curve at the same speed. These specially mounted test rods will make it easier to demonstrate the difference in body lean. We'll begin with the standard passenger sedan with soft coil springs. Notice the body lean. Let's compare this with the action of the M-151A2 truck. It takes the curve at the same speed. But notice the difference in the degree of body lean. Not as much as the sedan, but enough to give you the feel of the truck so that you can judge its stability. The M-151A2 has good stability when operating with its maximum payload of 1,200 pounds on the highway. And 800 pounds cross-country. However, when operating with any load over any terrain, exercise caution. Remember, this is a cross-country truck, not a high-speed vehicle. Being careful is the key to safe operation of any Army vehicle, including this one. The fact is, the M-151A2 is one of the best trucks ever developed by the Army. It's been thoroughly tested and released for use. This is a safe truck, provided that you maintain it properly and operate it within the limitations outlined in your manual. Remember, the M-151A2 is actually a utility truck and should be driven like one. How fast should you drive the quarter-ton? That depends on road conditions and local traffic laws. All of us have a tendency to drive a little faster on the open road. Stay on good terms with your speedometer. But you've got to be careful that you don't take curves too fast in this truck. And don't oversteer. This truck isn't built like a conventional car. You only have to turn the steering wheel a couple of inches on a curve like this. Use common sense when you drive. Obey the rules. Apply your brakes with a light motion. But keep this in mind. The quarter-ton has good stability even in emergencies. To demonstrate this, a test driver will simulate a possible accident situation. If you do run off the highway, never make an abrupt turn to get back on it. This could cause you to overturn. Instead, slow down to a stop to regain control. Shift into four-wheel drive if necessary, and ease back onto the road. Or, if you drift onto the shoulder, again ease back onto the road. Now let's talk about another driving emergency. One which may arise in wet weather, in snow, or where the roadbed is loose. What do you do when you hit this type of road surface and the rear end of the truck starts to skid? Slow down. If the skid is to the left, turn the steering wheel to the left. Let's look at that again. To correct the skid to the left, turn left. In the same way, you can correct a skid to the right by turning right. Always turn in the direction of the skid. But the best way to prevent the rear end from skidding is to slow down when approaching a curve, and slow way down when the road surface is slippery. Tests have proved that the M-151A2 has improved handling characteristics and that it is as reliable as any other current tactical vehicle. But it is not a tank, so don't drive it like one. When you are pulling the M416 trailer with a highway load of 1,320 pounds or a cross-country load of 1,070 pounds or less, remember to securely fasten the trailer safety chains. Remember that the trailer has no brakes. That's a lot of extra weight to control. You've got to compensate for it. Over rough ground and around curves. When the 106mm recoilless rifle is mounted, the truck becomes the M825 quarter-ton weapon carrier, a special purpose vehicle. Addition of the weapon and its M79 mount raises the center of gravity 2 inches. Therefore, the M825 should be used at lower speed and with greater care than the standard M151A2. The M825 should never tow a trailer, and it should not be used without its weapon as a utility truck. This is true of quarter-ton trucks, which have had the suspension modified to carry heavy loads. When adapted for use as a frontline ambulance, the quarter-ton is designated as the M718A1. When there is only one litter patient, he should always be carried on the lowest rack. This prevents the truck from becoming top-heavy. However, this version of the quarter-ton truck was designed for an emergency third litter capability. Never use this truck to pull a trailer. We have demonstrated how the M151A2 should be operated both across country and on regular roads. You're not going to win any drag races in a quarter-ton, so don't try. This is a tactical vehicle, a truck. It's not intended for high speeds on the highway. Most of you who operate the quarter-ton truck wear 2 hats. You also have another Army job. But when you're behind the wheel, your only military specialty is that of driver. Be a good one. Whether you drive the M151A2 by itself or with the M416 trailer attached. The the M-718A1 ambulance, or the M-825 weapon carrier, these are safe trucks when operated properly. And that depends on you.